we can't forget the kind of stellar move we saw happening in all of these metal names yesterday, where so many metal counters were the top gainers in Nifty 50. So the question that we are asking is that, is the tide turning for the metal sector? But let's find out what's happening in the sector and go across to our colleague Ashesha to understand what's fueling the rally in the metal counters and the outlook going ahead. Take it away, Ashesha.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We saw that massive rally in metal stocks in yesterday's trading session. In fact, Nifty Metal hit its lifetime high on an intraday basis in yesterday's trading session. The index has gained over 8% in the last 5 days alone and is up 55% from the lows that it hit in the month of June 2022. So what's really aiding metal stocks? One, of course, is the easing COVID policy by the Chinese government and the support that the Chinese government is providing to the ailing property sector in the Chinese market. Jeferries, in fact, yesterday came out with a report. They were quite bullish on the metal sector, and that is why stocks were gaining in yesterday's trading session. They believe that after almost a year of cautious view, they've turned positive on the Indian metal space. They believe that worst margin quarter for the Indian steel sector is now perhaps behind us, and the biggest chunk of earnings cut for Tata Steel and Hindalco is also over. They believe that metal prices for now have bottomed out, and Tata Steel is the top pick in the metal space, followed by Hindalco. In fact, they've upgraded Tata Steel to a buy from hold rating, and they've hiked the target price to 150 rupees per share. For Hindalco as well, they've upgraded the stock to a buy rating from hold, and the target price has been increased from 390 rupees per share to 600 rupees per share. So Chinese reopening, coupled with the fact that Jeferries came out with a positive note, was why metal stocks were gaining in trade yesterday. However, on Shanghai Metal Exchange, we did see a downtick as far as metal prices are concerned, and that is the reason metal stocks are a little subdued in today's trading session.
Right, thank you so much for that, Ashesha, for putting into context why exactly we saw that sort of a move in the metal index in yesterday's trading session. No doubt today the metal index is pretty subdued, but let's also hear out what ET Now and ET Now managing editor Nikunj Dalmia had to say on this rally in the metal sector and how should one view it.
Look, the 2023 positioning for the metal sector would be vastly different than what it was in 2022. 2022 metal stocks, they started on a high note, then came the inflation fear and the and the big slowdown challenge which happened in China. The reverse really could be at play. So inflation somewhere in the first quarter or in the middle of this calendar year will definitely peak out. That's one assumption. Second assumption is that if China starts opening up, which it will, looking at the way how the Chinese have already announced a date when they would be lifting COVID restrictions, the demand has to make a comeback. I'm making this very simple point here, which we've been arguing and which we've been making even last week, that after 3 months of a lockdown, the consumer in India, when the Indian economy opened, we saw a big spurt in travel. We saw a big spurt in consumer. We were using words like revenge travel and binge spending. Imagine if a country which has been under lockdown for almost 3 years now, if that opens, the appetite for energy, the appetite on the consumer front could really be insatiable. That's one part of the story, the China factor. Second part is these stocks are cheap. Simple. I mean, if you're buying a stock, I may say anything about the big picture scenario, but if the stocks are expensive, it really does not make sense. These stocks are cheap. You buy metal stocks at the peak of the bad news and you sell them at the peak of the good news. That's how you buy into metal stocks. I think we are at the peak of the downdraw, or we are at the bottom of the cycle right now. Stocks have been down dismissively, and it makes sense to buy into metal stocks, but for a trade. These are not the stocks you would say that I'm going to hold on for years. No, I think there's a cute trade coming there. We'll talk about some individual stocks like JSW and JSPL, but yeah, metal principally, it's a contra bet based around China, and I think there's a deep swell there, not a sustainable rally.